today's talk, I would like to share how engineer productivity can contribute to thriving and building a productive engineering culture. I think most of you will recognize this picture. When I started my journey in like Agile and how to set up things, this was like the thing that you want to go towards, like the upper right corner. Make sure that you enable teams to have autonomy and have strong alignment. However, after some time, I start to wonder, like, how does this guy know that we need to cross the bridge? And why aren't the team members asking, like, is it just us that need to cross the bridge, or are there like 10,000 others? Or how many other bridges, by the way, do we need to build? We may then need to change tactics. And well, over time, it seems like we solved that. More people were asking that question, and that is where a lot of, if my clicker works, yes, a lot of like frameworks come in to help you there. Like Safe, Spotify or Less, helping you to set up organization, how collaboration between teams can help with bigger stuff, and goal setting mechanisms, allowing foresight in where you want to move towards, with, for instance, a portfolio wall, where you can see like, oh, how many bridges are there to go still? And OKR is helping you in goal setting mechanisms, like, oh, this is like the amount of people that need to cross the bridge. So it's all there. This clicker is, well. But imagine you're an engineering manager and you're sitting in your team. You're taking care of your team members, helping them to drive their career forward. You're supporting the team in getting stuff delivered, see where things can change and things can be brought up to the next level. You make sure that you're still driving everything in the proper order to build awesome stuff that is also fit for the future. So technical excellence is also on your board. And oh yeah, you need to also contribute to all the processes that I just shown, like these framework, and contribute to a portfolio wall. And that is also something that is on your plate. And don't get me wrong, these processes, they really need to be there, but they're only as effective as how quickly you can adapt them over time. And by doing that, you need to make sure that you empower people that want to join and driving these changes and making those changes based on actual feedback that you're getting from your teams. And people need to feel safe to speak up, and making sure that they feel part of like designing the next increment that you want to build of your products, of your processes. So that's an additional step that you also need to do as an engineering manager. If you look at some of the interesting research, these are like really 3 recommended reads about building engineering cultures. We can basically distill 5 factors that are really things that you need to address. Psychological safety, I think we heard about that today as well. Empowerment, collaboration, knowledge sharing, and autonomy. Collaboration and autonomy, I can see a lot of that being covered in those agile skilled frameworks, portfolios, OKR, goal setting mechanisms. Knowledge sharing, yes, Spotify is mentioning like, hey, you can set up guilds, but honestly, I've seen a lot of organizations really struggle with it, like how to do that. And it's also driving change, like fast iterations on how to set up guilds. If you are interested how we are driving like the collaboration and our way of working, I would recommend to take a picture of this slide. There are 2 QR codes. One of them is to a video, the other is to a good write-up in what our way of working is in terms of processes. And if you want to learn more, watch this. Varun, our CPO, is explaining it very nicely there. I see a lot of phones, so. Today, I want to focus on the other 3 ingredients and share with you how we're doing that. But before I do, I need to share a little bit of context of the world that I'm living in with Emiro. So I'm part of what we call AMPed. If you Google it, it states excited and full of energy. For us internally, it stands for analytics, marketing, product, engineering, and design. We work hand in hand in that department. We have 110 engineering teams, and we are co-located in 3 different engineering hubs. There are some satellite hubs as well. So we have a distributed setup as well. How are we making sure that this psychological safety, empowerment, and knowledge sharing are also part of how we do things within engineering, within Miro? Just to be sure, for me, engineering means problem solving. That's product and engineering, not only coding. Let's start with the knowledge part. We basically got feedback from our community internally that there are two types of things that need to be in place to provide knowledge to people. First is like good read-ups. People like to grab themselves a good coffee and read. And there are the types of people that would like to go to a coach or have a mentor and build the bridge while walking it and have someone next to them to just ask questions. For the first case, we built a platform called AMDAP. Yes, you can read there, like how can I build a strong team? What phases are my team going through? How can I measure things? Or if I'm facing like a really big initiative that I need to deliver, like how do I do cross-team collaboration or cross-team planning and those kinds of things? It's all written out there. And we also have what we call champions available in the organization. So if you want to ask someone who's passionate about such a subject, that person is there. You know how to find that person. Interesting, what we saw in our data, the most common themes that people read actually, it's about flight levels, like how is your organization structured? Who's taking care of strategy? Who's taking care of the strategic parts that are like moving forward into the future? Your tactical parts or your operational things that you're currently doing. Who's responsible? Who's reporting to who? Where are stuff being decided? And how can I potentially influence that? I think in the previous presentation, we saw how important it is to see how the organization is structured. So you can see where you may be influencing things. The other stuff was management guide. Like, what is my responsibility as a manager? What do people expect from me? How can I do things? How do I do performance reviews, for instance? And latest news and updates. And given that I was a consultant a long time as well, I was seeing a lot of companies where it's very hard to get like the latest news. And in fast-paced environments like Miro, how can you keep up with all the changes that you're making, all the new stuff that's coming up? So provide it as well. For us, it was not a big surprise that these were the top three, given that we scaled rapidly, and this is like people getting to know the organization better. Then the part about safety, how we do that. And we have a simple statement. Transparency builds trust. If you can see where the shit is, you can address it, you can try to get rid of it, and at least see if it works or not. And we use heavily data on this in making sure that you can see how you're doing. Before people who are like the agilists in this room with data, output, outcome is mostly mentioned. And yes, I know that you should measure outcome, but it takes like 3 months sometimes to get reflection on things that you shipped. And if you are in a multi-product environment or you're shipping multiple features in increments, it's very hard to see which increment made what kind of impact. So outcome is great, keep measuring that, but output can be a very valuable instrument as well. Today I'm going to show you a bit more in how we deal with output and measuring that as data and making sure that we build transparency in our organization. What does it benefit from us? Well, first of all, it's easier to speak up if you have data, because you can just see, like, that is what I'm meaning, that is what I'm looking at, and it should be this, but it is currently this. Let's try something. You can drive experimentation, and you can literally see, like, are we moving the needle or not? And especially in an organization where you have a lot of new joiners, it's very handy if you have data with like boundaries set to what limitations are we seeking for the data. It's really helping them to connect and see what should I do and where can I help, where can I contribute, and potentially what is my contribution there. Question to the audience, like this is our product development lifecycle within Miro and our software development lifecycle. Who in this room is measuring currently cycle time on his PDLC? I see 2 hands there, which is great. Someone measuring it on the software development lifecycle? Also 2 hands, 2 more, 4, so a bit more, which is great. So why? But why? Because why aren't we all measuring this? Because it would give you a lot of insights on all those steps. How long do they take? Are we actually improving our speed there or our quality, whatever you measure? It is hard to do. Because yes, dear Agilist, this is not a linear process. It goes from left to right continuously. So that makes it harder to measure. And also you need to define every step really carefully. When am I in the define phase? When am I entering the design phase? What is that blurry like overlay between those phases? How do we measure that? And in your SDLC, like if you're building and you're going to integration phase, what is integration phase? Is that like merging your PRs? Or are you measuring cycle time on PRs like till merge, until close, or until production? I can make a case for all 3, depending if you're in a monolith environment or in a microservice environment. Which one to pick? So you need to go through all these kinds of conversations to get this in place and measure cycle time, which is a lot of work. And that also brings you to our monster. This is the Miro monster. It's life-sized at Miro 1. We have them in the hallway as a reminder. This is our representation for problems. The problem here is standardizing on what you need. We just talked about frameworks. We just also talked about how you can measure stuff. To make life really easy for me and my team from engineering productivity, let's standardize the entire PDLC and SDLC. I will bring in my measurements and we can like talk about the results. But I will force teams to work in a certain manner, which may be suboptimal for them, which really resonate for them. I would even lower productivity, let alone like how happy people are. They will start playing the system and they will make sure the numbers look good, but they will not do what you've ever written down in your process. So let's do it like the other way around. What you need. Well, you get like ways of working and how people do things all over the place. How are you going to measure that? That is also very hard. And I think that is the essence why most companies fail when they start measuring things on PDLC or SDLC level or one layer deeper. How does Miro solve this? Because I explained that data is a very important aspect of building trust and in that sense empowerment of people to make change and drive change. We have a concept and it's called freedom within the frame. And as Tom already mentioned in the previous presentation, it's super important in this playing area to give freedom to the people. And we exactly do that within Miro as well as a self-organizing organization. Well, we do this on all levels. So this freedom in the frame principle can be at team level, can be as what we call substream level, which is a collection of teams, or at stream level, which is a bunch of substreams together. We defined basically 4 axes that you need to comply on, which are our frame. That has to do with quality, goal setting. We learned that also in the previous presentation, why that is so important. Speed and happiness of the team. And we provide insights on how you're doing there. And we allow people to experiment and see, can we improve things? If a team uses Scrum, Kanban, Scrumban, another invented way, we really don't care. As long as you're making sure that you stick to the frame. Practical example, goal setting mechanism. Yes, your work needs to be in Jira. It needs to be related to epics. It needs to be related to initiative and therefore related to our OKRs. Simple rule. Whatever you do with it within your team, how you do your slicing, figure it out. And now Miro wants to relaunch, but we're not going to do that. So let's also address the elephant in the room. Because if I'm talking about data and that frame and quality and happiness, most people tell me immediately like, you are bringing in the whip in the room. You allow managers to start doing what we don't want them to do, and that is start pressing on the teams or substreams or streams in our case. Speed up. Yeah, your metrics are failing. You're not doing a good job. Fix it. So thank you, dear engineering productivity team, for providing that whip, but we don't like it, of course. That brings me, I guess, to the most important slide of this whole presentation, and hopefully something you will remember when you think back on this day. You may have seen Lord of the Rings, I hope so, and you may have seen Frodo standing in the Mountain of Doom, having this conversation with this ring of power. And Frodo listened to this ring of power and did exactly what he shouldn't have done. He went back. He listened to the ring. It was beneficial for the ring, but it was not so good for his journey. Still, he did it. That kind of behavior should not be done by leadership. And I think Tom also mentioned already, why you shouldn't do that. Flip the dialogue and retrain our managers on all levels exactly on this part. We have a dedicated program for them. We don't like to see engineering managers having a conversation with senior engineering managers where the senior engineering manager starts going to the dashboard saying, you're off, okay-ish, oh, good. That is totally killing this whole conversation about data. What we would like to see is that the engineering manager looks at the data, brings forward to the senior engineering manager, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm trying. I have no clue how to move the needle on this one. I've tried this, and this, not working. Give me your experience. That is your job. Help me. That is a very important aspect to do. People ask always, how does it look like? So I will share something just to feed curiosity as well. Do mind that this is tailored for every organization. So there's no, yes, there's DORA, and yes, there is space framework, and there's very good stuff that you can steal from it, but find your own path in what you want to measure for your own teams, streams, or however you're organized as an organization. We use our own product for that, Miro. So we generate for every team within our company a Miro board with key metrics. That can be a team, an actual engineering team. It can be on substream level, on stream level, and also on AMP level. Why a Miro board? We don't like static dashboards. We want to drive conversations. That was the whole idea. A question, answer, drive, action points. Luckily, our product does that very well. You can place stickies, you can link Jira cards, you can really make sure that there's an engaging dialogue about how you're doing that. We also learned quite quickly, actually, that there was so much data that these dashboards were blown away, very big. People were not looking at them anymore because, drowning in your own data, as we like to say. So we layered them. And this is what you're seeing as a layer one. It's really an information radiator level where a team can go to look at something is off without the limbings, or if they drive an experiment and they want to see is that actual improving, that is the place to go to. But if something is off, you want a deep dive. So just to give a practical example, we have a concept, it's called bug SLA. If you, as a hopefully Miro customer, files a bug, it gets dispatched to the right team. The team has a certain amount of time to fix it. And fix means in production. If you're not meeting that, your bug SLA will drop. And you want it to be at 100%. That is really what we're trying to aim for. So you can immediately see, bug SLA, what's the result? What if it's off? Well, then you go to a level 2 dashboard, which is way more detailed on what are the bugs that's currently on your backlog, how was your history on bug SLA, is it a one-time off, or is this happening more often? We help people to dive deeper into the data. Having all that kind of data available for teams, that is what our team is basically doing as engineering productivity and helping them to feel the continuous improvement cycles. And a lot of organizations, what I'm seeing nowadays is that they want to try this as well, but they ask a team to do it somewhere localized. We have an entire team to get this done. It's not something you do on the sideline. The other option that I'm seeing is that you're buying out-of-the-box software which requires like, oh, this is how your process works, meaning standardization. I think we covered that part, why that is tricky. The third option I'm seeing is that people start at the leadership level, building a very nice dashboard in how we're doing overall. Leadership sees something is off. Something is off. They shout it downstairs. No clue, because I don't have data as a team. Don't know what to do. Yes, I can do something, but it takes like 3 months before that reflects on this leadership dashboard. So that doesn't work. If you start doing this, start at team level. What do we get out of it? Well, shipping fast with a good eye on quality. Mentioned Buxole, we have a similar concept for security. We look at how quickly we review PRs, for instance. All those kinds of things is stuff that we're measuring and bringing to teams or scaling that up on other layers within the organization. The other thing is developer experience. And let me share an example. We have a dedicated developer experience team that is helping to optimize the developer experience and all the stuff that they're using. And one of the things that we could see also within the data is like the insane amount of context switching an engineer has to do. Like working in 6 different windows, 4 different systems continuously switching. And by the way, we're renewing these systems every 3 months because there's new cool technology around the block. Can we do that differently? Well, we're actually in the middle of driving a backstage adoption to cover on this part. So that is stuff that is spinning out, programs that's spinning out based on insights and data and feedback that we're getting and fueling the improvement cycles there. The other one is the engagement and Pearl surveys. A lot of organizations have them in place. It can be Google Oxygen, for instance, for leadership level, or the team surveys like the Spotify Team Check. Those surveys mostly are forgotten after, we got them, we reflected on the results. What are we going to do? Define some action points. We make sure that if you look at the team health dashboards that we're bringing to our teams, it sticks around. People can ask questions because teams and substreams and leaders are looking at these boards. Oh, there was something that we agreed on during that survey. It's not like a piece of paper somewhere in a drawer. The other thing is, are we structured well, gaining insights on that? And we learned, and as an example also from the previous presentation, that sometimes teams want to move. How do you know? Hopefully they tell you. But maybe data can also show you things there. So yes, you can look at the data from your planning cycles and think about what dependencies were identified. But we can also look at, for instance, the actual merge improvements on your code base. Which teams were there, what initiatives to merge in what pieces of code? Did we actually knew when we were doing the planning, or have we learned something new, that we needed to talk to that team to get approval and get something shipped? Or did we force them like in the last second, hey, approve this because we need to ship? Those kinds of learnings and data insights can fuel conversations on are we properly structured and set up. Maybe nice to share what we're seeing in the data. Yes, moving teams around will benefit you in terms of dependency management. However, the biggest, like speeding up, is what we get when we start helping orchestrating the dependencies in the planning phases. It's actually faster than moving teams. Why? If I'm moving a team, I will somewhere create a new dependency. I really bet you that will happen. So focusing on supporting them on proper planning may be more beneficial, can be easier to do as well. We have TSF, that is Team Success Factors. As I mentioned, it's a survey that is quite inspired on Spotify Team Health, where we allow people to collect data as a team and host a retrospective based on that. Once again, by giving them easy access to those insights, also over time, it fuels the discussion, are we actually improving? One of the first questions is, do you understand the purpose of your team? Well, we learned why that is so important. If you don't see that change over time and it is a negative number, hopefully you as an engineering manager start your talks with your teams and with your senior engineering manager. How can I change this? Overall, what we're seeing is that our Mironeers feel invited to change and to speak up and feel invited to experimentation because the data is there. They feel backed up in identifying where are areas of improvements. They feel invited to start experiment and driving a change. And they can really see the change. They can see like, hey, I am making a change there. I am moving this needle. And that builds trust overall in the team. And also a community. Because what's happening next is that we see people stepping upwards on certain things that they find really interesting. We call them champions. People that are, for instance, we're currently driving a program around lowering our cycle time on PRs. And there are a bunch of people who come together there from random teams who are really passionate about this, studying this data, doing experimentation with the teams. They have the means in seeing how it reflects into PR cycle times, but also maybe change tooling. In the end, it will lower PR cycle time. And it's driven by the community. That's exactly what we want to achieve. So this is how we bring together psychological safety based on this data, where people feel invited to speak up, where they feel empowered to start driving changes, where they collaborate together, where there is knowledge sharing and autonomy. And these are exactly the 5 ingredients that we're seeing in building a thriving engineering culture. So to summarize,